Dave Hutchins had three core principles in life: keep your head down, never volunteer for anything, and always know where the nearest exit is. These principles had served him well during his 15 years as a janitor at Quantum Dynamics Laboratory, right until today. "Hey, is somebody in here?" Dave called out, mop in hand, as he entered Lab 7. The experimental quantum entanglement chamber was supposed to be empty at this hour. A faint purple glow emanated from behind the massive machinery. "I'm just the janitor, folks. If you're doing unauthorized experiments again, I don't get paid enough to report you." The purple glow intensified. Dave sighed. Scientists were always leaving their experiments running overnight. He stepped forward to check if there was an off switch when the room suddenly exploded with light. "Oh, come on," Dave muttered as his vision blurred. "If this is another breach, HR is going to make us attend another 4-hour safety seminar." That was his last coherent thought before waking up in what appeared to be the world's most elaborate theme park. Except the theme seemed to be horrifying alien creatures of all shapes and sizes, and Dave was apparently the main attraction. He was in a transparent cell. Beyond it stretched a massive coliseum, filled with creatures that defied description. Some had too many eyes. Others had too few limbs. One particularly enthusiastic group seemed to be made entirely of what looked like sentient jello. "This is why you don't work late shifts," Dave muttered to himself. "Either I've been drugged, or I've finally cracked from inhaling too many experimental chemicals." A booming voice echoed through his cell, speaking a language that sounded like someone gargling while playing a kazoo underwater. Miraculously, Dave understood every word. "The specimen is awake. Prepare it for presentation." Dave blinked. "Specimen? I have a name, you know." He looked down at himself. They'd replaced his grey janitorial jumpsuit with what appeared to be gladiatorial armor, though it hung loosely on his lanky frame. "And this is definitely not my size. Do you have a complaint department?" Two hulking guards with exoskeletons and pincers instead of hands approached his cell. One of them made a series of clicking sounds that Dave somehow understood as, "Be silent, Earth Warrior. Your reputation precedes you, but your mind games won't work on us." "Mind games? Look, there's been a huge misunderstanding. I'm a janitor. I clean toilets for a living." The guard's antennae twitched in what Dave could only interpret as amusement. The human uses humor as a defense mechanism. Fascinating. Dave was escorted out of his cell and pushed toward an enormous archway that opened onto what looked like a gladiatorial arena. The roar of thousands of alien spectators hit him like a physical wave. "Ladies, gentlemen, and unclassified entities of the Galactic Federation." A voice boomed across the arena. "We present to you our latest acquisition, a human from the death world known as Earth." The crowd erupted in a cacophony of screeches, howls, and what might have been applause, though it sounded more like thousands of balloons being popped simultaneously. "I'm a janitor," Dave whispered to himself as he gazed up at the swirling mass of alien life forms filling the stands. "Just a janitor." A small, floating screen projected what appeared to be a documentary about Earth. It showed humans wrestling alligators, surviving extreme weather, and eating spicy foods. Each clip was met with horrified gasps from the audience. "For your entertainment and enlightenment," the announcer continued, "this specimen will demonstrate the legendary combat prowess of the human species." Dave looked desperately for an exit. His third life principle was failing him spectacularly. "This has to be a dream," he muttered. "A very elaborate, detailed, terrifying dream." One of the guards prodded him with an electrified staff. It hurt. A lot. "Not a dream," Dave concluded. Definitely not a dream. After what seemed like hours of being gawked at by countless alien species, Dave was finally escorted to what appeared to be living quarters. The room was minimalist but comfortable, with strange furniture that seemed designed for someone with a completely different anatomy. The door slid open, and in walked the most bizarre creature Dave had seen yet. It resembled a cross between a peacock and an octopus, with iridescent plumage and multiple tentacles draped in what looked like designer alien fashion. It carried what appeared to be a tablet. Human Dave Hutchins, The creature announced in a voice that somehow managed to sound simultaneously bored and condescending. I am Kyle Knorr, Executive Entertainment Director for the Vraxxian Empire and Curator of the Galactic Gladiatorial Games. Dave stared. Do you people have any idea what wrongful abduction means? I have rights, you know. He paused. Probably. I assume there's some kind of interstellar Geneva Convention. Kyle Knorr's tentacles rippled in what might have been amusement. Your species' propensity for humor, even in dire circumstances, is well documented. Most impressive. Dave assumed it was He consulted his tablet. Our intelligence indicates that Earth humans are apex predators, capable of persistence hunting, consuming toxic substances for pleasure, and surviving in extreme temperatures. I get winded climbing stairs, and I once called in sick because it was too humid, Dave countered. Classic human deception tactics, Kyle Knorr noted, seemingly impressed. Your instinct to appear weak is precisely why your species is so dangerous. Dave flopped onto the strange bed. This is ridiculous. I'm a janitor, not a gladiator. Yes, janitor, Kyle Knorr made air quotes with his tentacles. Our research shows this is one of your warrior castes, specializing in chemical warfare. I mop floors. With toxic substances that kill microscopic life forms, Kyle Knorr nodded sagely. Very impressive. Impressive. Before Dave could protest further, the door slid open again. This time, a smaller alien entered. Dave felt this one was female, resembled a humanoid cat with bluish fur and large, luminous eyes. She wore what appeared to be a lab coat. This is Lyra. Kyle Knorr introduced her with obvious distaste. She's our xenobiologist and will be monitoring your physiological responses during combat. Lyra approached cautiously. Fascinating specimen, she said, her voice soft and melodic. The first human we've ever captured. Not captured, Dave corrected. Abducted, illegally. Lyra's ears flattened against her head. I did mention to the acquisition team that taking you might violate Section 7 of the Non-Interference Directive, she whispered. Kyle Knorr waved a dismissive tentacle. Earth is classified as a Level 2 death world. The directive doesn't apply. Death world? Dave repeated incredulously. We have spas. And yoga retreats. Warrior meditation centers. Kyle Knorr translated to his tablet. Noted. Lyra's ears perked up. I've been studying Earth transmissions. Your species is remarkably resilient. You survive disasters, illness, and your own technological mishaps with incredible frequency. That's called being lucky, Dave explained, not a special power. Your humility is commendable, Kyle Knorr said, but unnecessary. Tomorrow you will face your first opponent in the arena. The betting pools are already going wild, most are wagering on how quickly you'll disembowel your adversary. Dave felt the blood drain from his face. I've never disemboweled anything in my life. Your restraint only adds to your mystique, Kyle Knorr replied, heading for the door. Rest well, human warrior. Tomorrow you make your debuts. As the door closed behind Kyle Knorr, Lyra lingered. I apologize for this situation, she said quietly, but perhaps I can help. Can you get me home? Dave asked hopefully. No, Lyra admitted, but I can give you advice for tomorrow. Your opponent will be a Vraxxian bone crusher. That sounds not good. They're sensitive to high-pitched noises and have poor peripheral vision, Lyra explained. Also, their skin secretes a mild hallucinogen when they're agitated. Dave blinked. How exactly is that helpful to me? Lyra shrugged. Information is always helpful. Oh, and try not to die. I've always wanted to study a living human. With that reassuring thought, she left, leaving Dave alone to contemplate his impending doom. The next morning, or what Dave assumed was morning, since time seemed meaningless in space, he was marched to the arena by 2 guards. His knees were practically knocking together. Listen, guys, Dave pleaded with his escorts. There's been a huge mistake. I'm not a warrior. The most violent thing I've ever done is kill a spider, and I felt bad about it afterward. The guards exchanged a look that clearly said, the human is trying its psychological warfare again. The arena was even more massive than it had appeared the day before. The stands were packed with aliens of all descriptions, creating a cacophony of screeches, hoots, and what might have been applause. In the center of the arena stood what Dave could only assume was the Vraxxian bone crusher. It was 9 feet tall, covered in spikes, with 4 muscular arms ending in claws that looked like they could shred steel. Its mouth was filled with jagged teeth, and its eyes, all 5 of them, glowed with malevolence. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me," Dave muttered. "Beings of the Galactic Federation." Kyle Nor's voice boomed across the arena. "Today we witnessed the debut of Earth's deadliest warrior against the undefeated champion of the Thrax system." The crowd went wild. Dave went pale. "Weapons will now be presented," Kyle Nor announced. A platform rose from the arena floor, displaying an array of terrifying implements. The bone crusher selected what appeared to be a combination of a mace and a chainsaw. Another platform rose in front of Dave, displaying a selection of equally deadly-looking weapons. "I don't suppose you have a phone I could borrow?" Dave asked the nearest guard. "Just one quick call to Earth. Maybe they could send someone who actually knows how to use these things." The guard ignored him. With a sigh, Dave picked up the smallest weapon he could find, something resembling a short staff. At least it didn't have any obvious blades or spikes. "Let the combat commence," Kyle Nor announced. The bone crusher let out a roar that shook the arena and charged directly at Dave. Acting on pure instinct, Dave did what any rational person would do. He turned and ran, screaming at the top of his lungs. To his surprise, the bone crusher suddenly stopped and began wobbling on its feet. It shook its massive head, as if disoriented. Dave glanced back in confusion. The alien crowd had gone silent. "The human employs sonic disorientation tactics," Kyle Nor announced, sounding impressed, "a rare technique." Dave blinked. His scream had apparently hit exactly the frequency Lyra had mentioned would affect Thraxians. Pure dumb luck. The bone crusher recovered and charged again. Dave, still clutching his staff, tripped over his own feet and fell flat on his back. The staff went flying from his hand, spinning through the air before striking the bone crusher directly between 2 of its eyes. The creature howled and staggered sideways. The crowd gasped collectively. The precision targeting of the neural cluster, Kyle Nor proclaimed. Extraordinary accuracy. Dave scrambled to his feet, bewildered. The bone crusher was now circling him warily, apparently reassessing its opponent. Sweat poured down Dave's face as his heart hammered in his chest. The creature approached again, more cautiously this time. As it drew near, Dave felt a familiar tickle in his nose. The arena dust, combined with stress, triggered an explosive sneeze. Achoo. A spray of human mucus hit the bone crusher directly in the face. The effect was immediate and shocking. The creature's skin began changing colors rapidly, and it started spinning in circles, clawing at its own face. The human deploys biological weapons. Kyle Nor shouted, his voice a mixture of horror and admiration. "This is unprecedented." The bone crusher, apparently hallucinating from contact with Dave's apparently toxic human bodily fluids, charged at an imaginary opponent and knocked itself unconscious against the arena wall. Silence fell over the stadium. Then, gradually a roar built up from the crowd, a mixture of awe, terror, and excitement. Dave stood in the center of the arena, panting, covered in sweat, and completely baffled by what had just happened. Victory to the human. Kyle Nor announced, through techniques heretofore unseen in the Galactic Games. As the guards escorted him back to his quarters, Dave overheard them whispering. "Did you see how it pretended to fall? A classic misdirection. And the biological attack? Horrifying. Those humans are walking bioweapons." Dave couldn't believe what he was hearing. Every accidental move he'd made had been interpreted as some kind of master strategy. His panic had been seen as calculated performance, his clumsiness interpreted as skill. And now, somehow, he was expected to do it all again. 3 weeks and 7 improbable victories later, Dave found himself sitting in what had been upgraded to luxury quarters, surrounded by the spoils of his conquests. The walls were decorated with holographic replays of his greatest techniques, the sonic disorientation, his scream of terror, The precision neural strike, his dropped weapon, the toxic projection, his sneeze, and most recently, the thermal deception. He'd started sweating profusely during a match, which his opponent interpreted as some kind of acid secretion and surrendered immediately. "I don't understand how this keeps happening," Dave said to the massive, rock-like alien reclining across from him. "I'm literally just panicking and getting lucky." Gronk, a Petrosian warrior who had become Dave's unlikely friend after they were matched together in a team event, rumbled with what passed for laughter among his species. "Human Dave is too modest. Your sleep paralysis technique against the Void Mantis was legendary." Dave had fallen asleep during a pre-match meditation period and had been carried, still snoring, into the arena. His opponent, believing this to be an advanced state of combat readiness, had surrendered rather than face whatever Dave was preparing. "That wasn't a technique. I was sleep-deprived." "Exactly," nodded Gronk sagely. "Depriving yourself of sleep to heighten your other senses. A brilliant strategy." The door slid open, and a thin, serpentine alien with translucent skin slithered in. This was Pit-Tech, another fighter who had attached himself to Dave's entourage, though Dave didn't trust him one bit. "The great human warrior holds court," Pit-Tech hissed sycophantically. "I bring news from the outer rings. They're selling human armor in the merchant quarter now." "What's human armor?" Dave asked suspiciously. "Grey fabric suits," Pit-Tech explained. "They claim it's made from the same material as your original battle garb." Dave groaned. "Those are janitor uniforms." Yes, Pit-Tech nodded enthusiastically. "Janitor. The elite human warrior caste, very prestigious." The door opened again, and Lyra entered, looking excited. "Dave, you've become quite the celebrity. Look at this." She held up what appeared to be a magazine with Dave's face on it, surrounded by alien text. "What does it say?" Dave asked warily. "The Human Deathbringer, 10 secrets behind his lethal techniques," Lyra translated. "And here's a merchandise catalog. They're selling human hydration vessels." She showed him a picture of what was clearly a coffee mug with deadly human toxin written on it in alien script. "This is insane," Dave muttered. "I've told everyone repeatedly that I'm just a regular guy." "Classic human psychological warfare," Pit-Tech whispered to Gronk, who nodded in agreement. "Oh," Lyra added excitedly. "They're also studying your nutritional preferences. Your request for coffee and donuts has been interpreted as a warrior's pre-battle ritual feast. The arena cafeteria now offers human power rings and bitter victory elixir." Dave buried his face in his hands. "I'm never going home, am I?" Gronk placed a comforting stone hand on Dave's shoulder, nearly dislocating it in the process. "Why would you want to leave? You're the greatest champion the arena has ever seen." "Because I'm a fraud. Sooner or later, I'm going to face someone I can't defeat by accident." "Speaking of which," Pit-Tech interjected, "the Emperor himself will be attending your next match. You're scheduled to face Drak Thor, the undefeated champion of the Outer Rim." Dave's stomach dropped. "Drak Thor? The guy they call the Planet Cleaver?" "The very same," Pit-Tech confirmed, his translucent skin rippling with excitement. "He's never left an opponent alive." "Great," Dave muttered. "Just great." Lyra looked concerned. "There might be a way out of this, Dave. The Emperor's presence means heightened security, but also more opportunities. If you could somehow—" "Escape?" Dave finished for her. He lowered his voice. "I've been thinking about that since day one." Gronk rumbled nervously. "Escape is impossible. The arena is too well guarded. Unless," Pit-Tech hissed thoughtfully, "one were to create a sufficient distraction." Dave looked at the 3 aliens who had become his unlikely allies. "Are you guys thinking what I'm thinking?" "That depends," Lyra replied. "Are you thinking of using the Emperor's visit and your match with Drak Thor as cover for an escape attempt that would probably get us all executed if we fail?" "That's exactly what I was thinking," Dave admitted. "Then yes," Lyra said with a smile. "We're thinking the same thing." The night before the big match, Dave and his unlikely allies gathered in his quarters to finalize their escape plan. Lyra had managed to smuggle in a holographic map of the arena complex. Security will be tripled because of the Emperor's visit, she explained, pointing to various entry points. But most of the guards will be focused here, in the Imperial viewing box. What about the docking bay? Dave asked. We'll need a ship. I can handle that, Pip-Tech offered. My species is known for our flexibility. He demonstrated by squeezing his serpentine body through the narrow space between a table and the wall. Gronk rumbled doubtfully. Guards will be suspicious if we all disappear at once. That's why we need a distraction, Dave said, something big enough to draw everyone's attention. Lyra's ears twitched. What's bigger than your match with Drak Thor? A human using all his secret weapons at once? Pip-Tech suggested, eyes gleaming. Dave scratched his chin thoughtfully. You know, these past weeks I've noticed something interesting. These aliens misinterpret everything I do. My sneezing, sweating, sleeping. Your legendary combat techniques. Gronk nodded seriously. Right, Dave rolled his eyes. But what if we used their misconceptions to our advantage? Over the next hour, they developed a plan that was equal parts brilliant and ridiculous. Lyra had been collecting data on what the aliens found most terrifying about humans, based on the arena audience's reactions. Bodily fluids elicit the strongest fear response, she noted, consulting her tablet, especially when combined with what they perceive as battle cries. So I need to sneeze and yell at the same time? AJ, Dave asked incredulously. Essentially, yes, Lyra confirmed. Also, they're terrified of your endurance capabilities. The fact that you can remain conscious after extreme physical exertion seems unnatural to most species. You mean the fact that I don't die after running around panicking? Precisely, Lyra nodded. And then there's your sleeping. The concept of voluntarily becoming unconscious is horrifying to many species. They believe it's some form of death meditation. Dave laughed. So basically, if I sneeze, sweat, yell, run around, and then take a nap, I'll terrify the entire arena. Don't forget eating, Pip-Tech added. When you consumed that spicy arena food and turned red, 3 spectators passed out. This is the stupidest plan ever, Dave muttered, but it might actually work. They spent the rest of the night refining the details. Gronk would position himself near the service corridors leading to the docking bay. Pip-Tech would disable the security systems in the hangar. Lyra would prepare a shuttle. What about the other fighters? Dave asked suddenly. There are dozens of aliens here against their will, just like me. His companions exchanged glances. The plan becomes more complicated with more individuals, Lyra cautioned, but not impossible. Gronk rumbled thoughtfully. Dave nodded. Then it's settled. We're not just escaping, we're leading a prison break. As they finalized the details, Dave felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of him still couldn't believe this was happening, that he, Dave Hutchins, unremarkable janitor, was planning a daring escape from an alien gladiatorial arena. Another part was terrified of facing Drak Thor, even as a distraction. Get some sleep, Lyra advised as they prepared to leave. Tomorrow you face the deadliest warrior in the galaxy. No pressure, Dave muttered. After they left, Dave lay on his bed staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow he'd either be on his way home or dead at the hands of an alien champion. As sleep finally claimed him, he had one last coherent thought. I really should have called in sick that day. The arena was packed beyond capacity. The aliens of every conceivable shape and size filled the stands, with special hovering platforms accommodating those who couldn't fit in conventional seating. At the center of it all was the Imperial viewing box, where the Emperor of the Vraxxian Empire, a massive, gelatinous being draped in elaborate ceremonial armor, observed the proceedings with his 12 eyes. Dave stood in the preparation chamber, trying to control his breathing. His plan was insane, but it was all he had. Human Dave Hutchins, Kyle Nor's voice startled him. The entertainment director entered, his tentacles quivering with excitement. This is unprecedented. The betting pools have crashed our quantum computing systems. Glad to be of service, Dave replied dryly. The Emperor himself has placed a wager on your match, Kyle Nor continued. He's most eager to witness your legendary techniques. Well, he's in for quite a show, Dave promised, which wasn't exactly a lie. The massive doors to the arena began to open. The roar of the crowd was deafening. Beings of the Galactic Federation. The announcer's voice boomed, honored by the presence of His Imperial Magnificence. We present the match of the millennium. The human Deathbringer versus the planet Cleaver. Dave stepped into the arena, squinting against the bright lights. Across from him stood Drak Thor. If the Bone Crusher had been intimidating, Drak Thor was terrifying on a whole different level. Standing 12 feet tall, his body was a bizarre combination of chitinous armor, exposed muscle, and what appeared to be volcanic rock. His face, if it could be called that, was a mass of sensory organs surrounding a mouth filled with hundreds of needle-like teeth. So, Dave called out, his voice barely audible over the crowd, "Come here often." Drak Thor responded with a roar that literally shook dust from the arena ceiling. "Let the final combat commence," the announcer declared. Drak Thor immediately charged, moving with shocking speed for something so large. Dave executed the first part of the plan. He ran away, screaming at the top of his lungs. The crowd went wild, interpreting his panicked flight as some kind of advanced combat maneuver. Drak Thor, temporarily confused by this tactic, hesitated just long enough for Dave to position himself near one of the predetermined escape routes. The human employs his famous disorientation technique, the announcer shouted excitedly. Phase 1 complete. Now for Phase 2. Dave stopped running and turned to face Drak Thor. He took a deep breath, concentrated on the arena dust, and felt the familiar tickle in his nose. The sneeze, when it came, was spectacular. Achoo. Achoo. The spray was mostly harmless human mucus, but Drak Thor reacted as if he'd been hit with acid. He staggered backward, wiping frantically at his sensory clusters. Biological warfare, gasped the announcer. The human deploys his most feared weapon. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Many spectators in the lower stands began evacuating, fearing contamination. Perfect. Dave continued his performance, running in circles until he was drenched in sweat, then pausing to wipe his brow dramatically. The sweat flew from his hand in droplets that caught the arena lights. The human unleashes the legendary liquid death, the announcer shrieked. More spectators fled. By now, Drak Thor had recovered and was approaching more cautiously. Dave knew he couldn't keep this charade going much longer. He needed the final distraction. He locked eyes with Lyra, who was positioned near one of the arena service entrances. She gave a subtle nod. It was time. Dave took a deep breath and shouted at the top of his lungs, "I need coffee. Bring me my human power drink or face the consequences." This was the signal. Throughout the arena, Pit Tech and the other conspirators began creating small disturbances, power fluctuations, minor explosions, smoke bombs in strategic locations. The human demands his victory elixir, the announcer interpreted. He prepares for his ultimate technique. The Emperor himself leaned forward in his viewing box, all 12 eyes fixed on Dave. This was exactly what they had hoped for, everyone's attention focused on the arena floor. Drak Thor, sensing his opportunity, charged again. Dave stood his ground until the last possible second, then executed an awkward dive that, by pure luck, sent him rolling between Drak Thor's massive legs. As he came up behind the behemoth, Dave pretended to slip and fell flat on his back. From the viewing box, the Emperor rose to his full height, anticipating Dave's next move. Dave closed his eyes and went completely limp. To the aliens, it appeared he had entered his dreaded death meditation state. The human activates his final form, the announcer screamed. Evacuate the lower levels. Panic ensued. Even Drak Thor backed away, unsure what horrors the human might unleash next. The Emperor's security detail, concerned for his safety, began ushering him toward the exit. Exactly as planned. In the confusion, Lyra activated the emergency locks on all main exits while unlocking the service corridors. Bronk, positioned in the docking bay, disabled the final security measures. Throughout the arena, captured fighters made their way toward the predetermined escape routes. Dave opened one eye slightly. Drak Thor was still keeping his distance. The Emperor was being escorted out. Most of the crowd was either fleeing or watching in horrified fascination. Action. Slowly, Dave got to his feet. He looked directly at the nearest broadcast drone and said clearly, as we say on Earth, "That's all, folks." Then he sprinted toward the service entrance where Lyra waited. Alarms began blaring as the arena security finally realized what was happening. But it was too late. By the time the guards organized themselves, Dave and dozens of other fighters had reached the docking bay. Pip-Tech had commandeered a prison transport ship. "Hurry," he hissed as fighters piled aboard. "The security systems are rebooting." Dave was the last to board, jumping through the closing doors as laser fire erupted around him. The ship's engines roared to life, and they blasted out of the docking bay into open space. As the arena shrank behind them, Dave collapsed into a seat next to Lyra. "I can't believe that actually worked," he panted. "Believe it," she said, smiling. "You've become a legend, Dave Hutchins." "A janitor becoming an intergalactic gladiator," Dave mused. "Who would have thought?" "A thought." "Not just any gladiator," Gronk rumbled from the pilot's seat. "The human who brought the Vraxxian Empire to its knees." "And ensured they'll never bother Earth again," Pip-Tech added, checking the ship's communications. "The stories are already spreading across the galaxy. Humans are being described as the most terrifying species in the universe." Dave laughed. "If they only knew the truth." "Sometimes," Lyra said wisely, "a legend is more powerful than the truth." As the stars streaked by outside the viewport, Dave couldn't help but smile. So, which way to Earth? "I've got a job to get back to. Those floors aren't going to mop themselves." "About that," Gronk said hesitantly. "We may need to make a few stops first. There are revolutionaries in the Outer Rim who would pay handsomely to meet the human Deathbringer." Dave sighed dramatically. "Fine. But someone owes me a coffee, a real one. Not that victory elixir nonsense." As the ship jumped to light speed, carrying them toward new adventures, Dave Hutchins, former janitor, accidental gladiator, and now reluctant legend, realized that his life principles might need updating. Sometimes it paid to volunteer. Sometimes keeping your head down wasn't the answer. And sometimes the nearest exit led to the stars. But coffee was still non-negotiable.